6:30. I'm going to go ahead and call the March 14th, 2023 Street Committee meeting to order. Andrew, on you.
The first item on the agenda is a boundary line adjustment and easement plat. Sorry, I had the wrong agenda pulled up here. Here we are. This is for a new 15-foot utility easement and another 10 by 10 public utility easement along the front on Radford Street, and then a new variable width sidewalk easement on Radford Street as well. And this is for 975 Radford Street. So let me go ahead and... So we have a few items for you for your review in front of you today. Basically, this is the plat going 975. They're planning to put 5 townhomes here, which you'll be able to see on the next slide a little bit better. There is a utility easement that comes around to the back here. I assume it's mostly for sewer.
It is a sewer.
So it's a sewer, specifically for sewer. And then there's an additional utility easement that's needed here, as well as one that was requested by town staff here as well. And then the variable width sidewalk easement is along the front for Radford Street to ensure that if the sidewalk is not completely on the property, then it has a access easement over it for the public to be able to use it. The next slide is one that Mike produced, and basically what you're seeing here is the approved site plan to the in purple, and then the plat in green that laying above it. So you can see the 5 townhomes here in the bottom. The sewer easement will come out in front of it, basically in the parking lot. The parking will be in front. It'll be double loaded parking with some parking here on the bottom, and then parking here against the townhomes. And then the last one is the aerial showing the muffler shop to the right, and then the single family house to the left, and then the vacant lot as it sits today.
This 9 by 20 easement, is it included, or will we have to make an adjustment? We have the 15-foot easement.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that was a later addition. So if you all would, are going to approve it, I would ask that you would include that as part of the approval. And Mike, remind me the reason for that.
The 9 by 20.
The 9 by 20
is where, say, if you go back to the purple and green one, you can see in the bottom down there, that's where the water meters are going. And some of the water meters were in the right of way, but some were not. So we want those either in the right of way or in an easement. And that's the same concept. If you look over to the 10 by 10, the fire hydrant is going right there. So that 10 by 10 is for the fire hydrant, and the 9 by 20 is covering a bank of 5 meters.
Concerns or questions about it? I guess the only question I have is, do we need to, when it's time to approve the agenda, make a motion to change that, or can we just add it in our?
I think if it was in the motion, for approval as you explained it, then it would be.
Then we can just leave the agenda.
It would be fine, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to pass the baton on that one. Yes, ma'am. You know what? Hey.
Yeah. only other item we had on the agenda was just wanted to revisit the subdivision ordinance conversation, and just to see if you all had any additional questions, and how you would like to move forward with this. As you may recall, we talked about exploring the idea of allowing certain items, whether it's multiple lot line adjustments and easements, to be done at the staff level. Consider making minor subdivisions at the staff level. Deciding what constitutes a minor subdivision was a question that I think we still have from a staff level, and probably would ask for your guidance on that. We would ask for your guidance on that, and whether you would want to have the planning commission study that further, or if that's something that you would want to talk about further at this level. In order to have planning commission look at it further, it would need to be referred to them, by town council. And so, we had talked about potentially having that on the agenda for this evening, but as Mr. Bishop and I talked about it, we just felt like we wanted to bring it back again, just to see if you all had any further questions, wanted to revisit any topic that we talked about before. I have the slides, that went over last time, so I'm happy to, it has a few comparisons to other localities, as well as some of the pros and cons that we feel, are with the current system, and pros and cons for potential changes.
So the only, I guess, question I would have is that, one thing, we're trying to speed it up for the citizens that can't come in for something small. Now, does everything have to be referred back to council, then referred back to planning commission?
You mean the changes that you're talking about making, or in the case of a plat?
I guess in the case of a plat.
Well, I think that would be something that's up for consideration. You all could delegate that power to the planning commission and let them be the final authority on it. Or you could have them recommend something to you. Depends on how involved you want to be, basically. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when the committee comes up with some type of agreement, then we would take it for town council as a whole to decide yes and no for the changes.
Correct, yes. So this would be changes to the subdivision ordinance. So I'd have to verify, but I think that would, a recommendation for the changes would need to come through through the planning commission, and then I would recommend that it come back through this committee for final recommendation to council.
So maybe two questions that I have on top to add on to that. Are we thinking about two different thresholds, like one threshold where at this threshold, if we're dividing one into two or just adjusting lines for one, that the staff can just take care of that? Or are we recommending that whatever that threshold is either going to us or it's going to planning commission? Or is that the discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is, because looking at other communities around, it's really done multiple ways. I think Radford, the larger subdivisions go to planning commission and then to town council for approval. And Salem, I think it just went directly to planning commission, correct? And then Blacksburg is the same, and then Montgomery County is more similar to Radford.
I think the thing to remember is that you don't have a lot of wiggle room in making these decisions. If it meets the ordinance, you basically have to approve it. So the question becomes for you all then, if you know you're going to kind of have to do it, do you want to be involved in it at the council level, which is more legislative?
I can see us coming up with a threshold where if we have one lot and they're subdividing into two, or they're adjusting their lot lines or whatever, that staff just takes care of it. And then I would see between that and a certain level that planning commission just makes the recommendation and then goes, we push it through the process of planning commission making the recommendation, and then is it up for discussion whether or not that would come to council, or is the threshold up until this point, planning commission makes the decision, and simply we just let council know so that we can maintain that awareness that we talked about? Or, and then anything above that comes from planning commission to council, or are we saying that anything that goes to planning commission goes to council?
I think it could be either of those, or it could not go to planning commission altogether and still, for anything that's considered a major subdivision, go to council as well.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the types of avenues to kind of explore to see, and I think it's partly kind of, the idea being, are these items that are better suited at a different level than town council, because, the workload, with the current workload and such, is that something that you would want to take on? But as we kind of looked at the advantages of the current system, there is, council does have more, does have more kind of eyes on the process, so there is more visibility within the public of what's coming through. And for large subdivisions, I mean, I think that's true. Now, I mean, our planning commission meetings are televised
Right.
as well.
Yeah, it's still public
And
information.
so it's still public, but, I think we do have more people do watch, town council at the end of the day. I think a lot of localities have it at the planning commission because it isn't, like Benjamin said, a legislative decision. It's really more administrative
Right.
in that if it meets the subdivision ordinance, then it really is supposed to be approved. Now, there are situations where you can have variances to the subdivision ordinance. So say, right now, maybe this doesn't change, but if a subdivision wants to vary the width of the street, it has to go to town council. That's really a variance to the subdivision ordinance is what they're requesting. And so there could be any variety of those types of things. So do those items still come to town council, or would those go to planning commission, then town council? Those would be items to explore a little bit more.
It's still a lot to absorb, for me to absorb anyway. And I think one of the biggest keys we definitely be with transformation. We don't want people to think we're hiding something, someone, why did you, and why did you approve it, and not
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, transparent.
Another thought I have, is that, to be honest, there's no threshold that I can think of where, even if it's like, they want to subdivide 50 lots, that even above something like that, town council has any different roles than the planning commission would in applying the administrative guidelines and approving that. It's still the same action. The fact that it's more, I don't know why council would need to be involved. We would certainly want to know about those things, but we would, because they'd be a planning commission. So I guess at any threshold, planning commission can handle making that decision, right?
Yeah.
And I will say, with a lot of properties, my experience has been in town with larger subdivisions, they would always come to council because they've been rezoned, in situations where it's been agricultural land.
Yeah.
And then like Ragus Point, I think there are a couple others, that those would be rezonings anyway. So and that's where it really is more of a legislative decision.
Right.
Is this a good idea to go from agricultural land to a residential zoning? Is the infrastructure enough? Do we have enough water capacity? Do we have enough sewer capacity? Are the roads in good shape? Those are concerns that you would hear from neighbors, and the council, should be able to react to that and also
Yeah.
take into account what planning commission's thoughts were on the situation,
Yep.
and their recommendation, and
Absolutely,
make that final decision.
I agree.
So part of me thinks with larger subdivisions, those are still gonna be coming to
Yeah.
council.
And, yeah,
Anyways, and.
For
yeah,
for the
rezoning.
legislative
Yeah,
portion of the process,
yeah,
yeah.
right,
And they'll
So-
probably have a proffered plan as well.
yeah.
So if they have a plan, they're limited to a certain number of lots and a certain design and layout and all that, provided that's been proffered.
Right,
So you would have some control at that point of how many lots and where they're gonna be and all that sort of thing. And really, it's just the actual creation of those that would happen later on
Mhm.
with the subdivision.
Right, so, for example, there's a rezoning coming to you all, in a couple weeks, and, if it were approved, it would then have to come back to this committee and then to council after it were approved by the rezoning, for the subdivision approval and such, and so, that may be a good way to kind of think about it. And you may have heard me before say, oh yeah, this was approved by a rezoning back in August of 2021 or 2022, and now it's coming with the
We're
process.
checking the box that
Yeah,
comes after
right,
that in the process,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm assuming planning commission would be comfortable reviewing the subdivision of the lots and
Mhm.
applying the administrative procedures?
Yeah, I think they would. I mean, but I think it might be helpful for you all to refer the whole idea to them and kind of let them see what they think they're comfortable with. And then they could come back with a recommendation to you, like, we think that maybe staff could look at this part, but we would do it this way, or they might recommend, we'd like to make a recommendation and send it back to council. They could think that.
I would love to hear their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And I am personally fine with that part of the process staying in planning commission. I'm fine continuing to be involved at a certain level,
Sure.
that they, especially at their recommendation. I'm also fine with us finding what a threshold is where staff can just handle it. It's simple, it's neat, it's administrative, it's cleaning things up, like, it doesn't need to come to us for extra eyes. So, I would love to hear planning commission's thoughts, and then us develop a new set of guidelines, and then present those to council if it sounds good to us.
Yeah.
I probably think about doing this too, once we get enough information, once we can just have, maybe during one of the council meetings, have you present the idea. Not necessarily they can vote on it that night, let it sink in a little bit. Vote on it, say in then they vote on it in 2 weeks. Not tonight, I'm not talking about tonight, I'm talking about down the road, because there's a lot to take in. And here, just going back and forth, who's gonna do what, when, where, and how. Again, I'm not
I
trying
see
to.
a chart in our future.
And I'm not trying to get out of doing work, it's like, I run a lot sitting here, believe it or not. And just like, tonight, those 2 things that you report, right, I didn't even see them. Hey, go ahead. But I just think, like I said this before, I never understood why we were called, quote, the street committee. Because, when I first came on the street committee, I said, okay, we're gonna deal with the street. But now we're dealing with this and that and this. So everything is spelled under the street committee, seems like. The title's misleading.
Right, yeah.
It is.
I had questions about when I first came on, now it's kind of part of the fabric of what we do, so.
So maybe I have to, one of these days, I'm Rosemary, change the committee's name, to
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
At all.
Whatever, okay.
I'm also fine if planning commission says, you know what, we kind of like that council approves these things, we're not sure we want to put our hands in, that's also fine. No,
Sure.
I don't feel strongly in any of these ways. I think the main objective for changing it is to make sure staff can make simple changes and we don't hold people up in their plans. And planning commission is a really perfect match to review those things because they understand what goes into those plans and those changes. So just trying to make sure everything makes sense.
Is that for you? Okay.
Oh, no.
Is that your?
It was a spam call, I think. Randy
I keep texting him saying.
I was gonna say, I saw him standing there.
I did too.
Yeah.
perfect time, but,
You wanted me to stop talking.
No, no, no.
yeah, I don't.
Is that you?
I just think it's something to keep talking about until we get a real good understanding. I don't want to think that we are trying to push something off on another group, something like that.
Yeah.
And we don't want council to, y'all leaving us out of the loop. That's not the idea.
But we won't. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll make sure that they know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If we can take, would you be comfortable taking this idea to planning commission, having discussions, and then next week committee meeting, we'll come back, we'll talk about what they recommend, or we could even come if that's helpful.
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to ask them about it.
So, we would need a referral
Yeah.
from street committee,
Okay.
you know, and then that council would agree to, you know, to
Gotcha.
take it back. So,
Okay,
didn't know if we wanted to do that tonight, or if you want me to put on the agenda for next,
I see what you're saying.
next, meeting to say, you know, referral to, refer this idea to the planning commission.
I don't care, either way.
So if we referred it tonight, how much discussion would that be
Yeah,
open up to?
you certainly could, you know, refer it tonight. I just know that there's sometimes a desire to have it on the agenda, you know, when you bring business up within the committee. At least that was, I was just trying to just make sure that, you know, that there wasn't any question of, okay, well, why, I didn't know this was on the agenda, or
Right.
any
Yeah.
questions in that regard, so.
That's
I don't think it's
Yeah.
urgent. I think you
Yeah.
could wait until the next,
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
y'all been doing this for how many years now?
Right, yeah, no, we wanna get it right,
Yeah, we do.
yeah.
All right, so next council meeting, we'll put it on the agenda that we would like to refer this to planning commission to review, and then we'll just have a couple talking points that we can present to council, to
That
let them
sounds
know what's
good.
happening, and then we'll get the thumbs up to send off to planning commission
Very
for
good.
discussion.
Great. And would you like me to do potentially the presentation at the next council meeting, or would you like to just kind of explain it, and I can help, you know, all this
I
work?
think the presentation would be helpful to the
Yeah.
council
Yeah.
members.
Okay,
Do you agree?
I agree,
cool.
yeah.
Similar to what we discussed earlier. Okay, great, excellent. Very good.
Is there anything else to come for this committee?
Very good.
I think you got it.
Yeah, I need to give Tim a call.
Yes, thank you.